The Unholy Trinity Podcast. 3 Blues, 3 Opinions, 1 Everton Podcast.
Welcome back to the second part of today's Unholy Trinity Podcast. And like I said just before the break, it's very much a case of now we have lost that game. Now the unbeaten run that we had is now gone. It's about looking and taking stock of where we are. And I think almost we can, as a fan base, all fans do it, of course, of every club, you start to get a bit complacent in terms of, Frank's cracked it. We're going to be fighting for European places this season, no problem. Whereas, as we saw last night, when you come up against a good quality side and a much improved side in Manchester United, you've got to then look at, okay, well, we've lost that game. How have we lost it? Why have we lost it? Could we have done any better? But Max, it's a reflection of where we currently are, isn't it? Frank Lampard alluded to this progression. Progression is not linear. You don't go up in a straight line, that's for sure. Every club goes through peaks and troughs, and he alluded to that. And I think as fans, we're quite understanding of it, aren't we? Because a really interesting thing happened at the end of the game last night for me, which I thought, which it's quite touching, really. Everton fans sang the club's name, got beat 2-1. The players were going round. The players got applauded. They sang the club's name. And it's good. It's good to see, isn't it, really, that fans are understanding of this journey that we're on with Frank Lampard, this development that we're going through, and seems to be understanding that we can and we will have blips and more blips in the road as we go along.
Most definitely, and what a difference that makes from the toxicity around the club under Lampard's predecessor, and some of the antics that went on following some of those results. But I'm glad Lee mentioned that before about the current sort of structure of the club in terms of playing personnel and the direction of which the club is headed in. Because the last time I spoke to you guys, we labelled the group of Everton players at that time somewhat of a Frankenstein squad, meaning that the bulk of players were assembled and brought in by various different managers and subsequent regimes, be that, Ronald Koeman and Steve Walsh, or Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brands. And touching on what you said there, Mike, what we've seen from this current group of Everton players is the sort of cohesion and type of character Evertonians would have hoped to have seen, I would say, following the initial investment from 2016. I'm talking in particular about the likes of Conor Cody and James Tarkowski, who, for better or for worse, have been, adopted the moniker of Everton dads, which showed the type of responsibility that they have taken amongst this current group of players, which I think Everton have been crying out for a number of years as natural leaders. And alongside that, Everton have also brought in the profile of player that suits that sort of long-term project, which Lampard is hoping to steer. I'm talking the likes of Nathan Patterson and Amadou Onana, who fans have taken to due to their sort of commitment to the cause and ability that they've shown in glimpses. However, touching on what you guys were saying earlier about the amount of money that Manchester United have spent, and you could also aim this in the direction of Spurs as well, who we are coming up against. The downside to all this is that, Everton are in a much weaker position than their competitors from, I would say, around the 2010s. As I said, this is the position I feel Everton should have been in around 2017-ish, bringing in that calibre and profile of player. But, mistakes have been made in terms of investment and players that have been brought in. However, we sort of, we've steered the mess. We've got a lot of players off the books who weren't contributing anywhere near what they should have done, considering the wages that they were taking up. And as a whole, I do feel like Everton are now finally going in the right direction.
Like we said before, we made a comparison with who was on the bench for Manchester United and who he could bring on. Sean said before, obviously, about Frank Lampard and making changes and substitutions. And as much as the bench, obviously, for Everton was stronger than a lot of previous games, especially at the start of the season and last season, it's still not all the way there, is it? We still look at players that weren't included last night. Obviously, Yerry Mina and Mason Holgate are back in training, which is obviously clearly a positive. There's two more defensive players that maybe at times, where if we want to try and see a game out, they can come on. You've obviously got Nathan Patterson, who started the season particularly well, who's not on the bench. Decore wasn't on the bench last night. From this, that was my eyesight test. I didn't see him. Not quite sure what's gone on there. I haven't heard anything. Whether it's just, he's working his way back, his knee from injury as well. But then you look at obviously other players. I thought James Garner, by the way, came on and had a really good cameo. We were speaking post-match, and I think he looks a really, really tidy player, and you can understand why the manager gave him a glowing reference in the pre-match press conference, because you look at him and technically he looks very, very good. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him, even over the next few weeks or so, before the season closes down for a few weeks before the World Cup. I think he's going to grow into the side, to be honest with you. But Sean, what do you think? Obviously, you mentioned there about Frank Lampard, and he's very much learning on the job, isn't he? Let's get it right. He's had a few jobs in his time. Obviously, the Derby job, Chelsea, which he was a bit of a free hit. I always say that when he was approached for the job, because they couldn't sign any players. So he's very much learning on the job. You've got a lot of new players, younger players coming through and being brought in to that side. So a lot of learning and a lot of gelling and cohesion to do. But obviously, we shouldn't get too downhearted when we lose a game to Manchester United, should we? Because it is a reflection of where we currently are and doesn't alter our direction overall anyway.
No, not at all. Everton's season is not built on games against the top six. It's just not, because we're not there. We're not. If we get a point against Liverpool, it's a great result. If we get a point away to Arsenal or someone, it's a great result, and that's how it should be. And I like what the point you're saying about the Everton fans singing after the game, because it shows that at least the match-going fans fully understand where Everton are and what path they're on. They're at the beginning of the journey. They're not in the middle of it or the end of it where they've developed. It's a reset. This summer was a complete reset for Everton. And even as you're saying, the manager is inexperienced. Two of their centre midfielders, Iwobi wasn't a centre midfielder this time last year. Let's not forget. Anana started 11 league games for Lille last season. He's inexperienced. He's just come on leaps and bounds. Dwight McNeil comes off the bench. He's only 22 and he's been at Burnley. What development has he enjoyed? Nathan Patterson, who's out injured again, and he's inexperienced. This is his first full season. Mykolenko, first full season in the Premier League. This is a team that's to be developed. And if as you say, with Lampard, Derby was there for 1 year, worked with players he knew in Mason Mount from Chelsea's youth. Went to Chelsea, couldn't buy any players, so worked with the youth, Tomori, Mount, players he knew. And then when he threw all the players at them, he's never had a year where he's been able to develop his team and build that team. And that's what Everton are doing with him now. So they're going to develop together, and there are going to be bumps in the road. But I don't particularly think a loss to Manchester United is a bump in the road. I'm more disappointed by losing to Aston Villa, because I don't think they're any better than us. But that was early in the season. We didn't have a striker. If we lose to them this week, if we'd lost to Aston Villa last night 2-1 at home, I'd be disappointed and concerned. But Manchester United, with their £1 million signings and, as I've said, a better manager and whatever else, I'm not too concerned about that. But there is, for me, now I'm not a match-going Everton fan. I haven't been. I'd love to be, but it doesn't work out that way for me. So I watch us wherever way I can. There is a difference between match-going fans like yourselves and Everton fans on the internet, because the match day fans who go understand the slow process and can see it live. But I feel a lot of Everton fans sometimes get a little bit carried away with themselves, and have sort of forgotten how bad we were last year. We were never going to jump from narrowly avoiding relegation to top 10. Let's get to Europe in a season where you've got rid of 8 or 9 players and brought the same amount in the end, or 5 or 6 or 7. It's not going to happen. It doesn't work, because a lot of football is built on that cohesion and partnerships and development. So it's just one of them where you've got to accept there will be bumps in the road. There'll be really good weeks, there'll be really bad weeks. Get on with it. And for me, I know I don't know if I'm completely unambitious or not. If Everton finished 10th, 11th, 12th, I'm happy with that after last season. If I'm not going into every weekend worried about Everton playing Derby next year in the Championship or Sunderland or someone, I don't care. I'm happy. And then next year, because you always say about these managers, the first year is the development year, and they give that to every manager. Klopp had the first year at Liverpool. It doesn't matter, it's his first development year. All of them get that, but we never give that to an Everton manager. They've got to finish 6th or 7th, 8th every year. Why? There's no we need patience, and I think Everton should have learned their lessons by now by trying to rush under Mashiri to get to that. Let's give them a bit of time and patience now and let them develop properly without that pressure.
I think that's a brilliant point, that, Sean. I think that's a brilliant point. And it's a point we've talked about on the podcast as well in the past about expectations need to be managed. Yeah, I mean, and you only have to look at a former Blue in Arteta. I mean, he's nearly been sacked about 5 times in that job at Arsenal, and half the time that's the press that are on him trying to get rid of him because they've lost 3 out of 4 games against top sides or something like that. So, look at him now. They've stood by him. They've backed him financially. He's got his ideas across to the team. He's built a young team at that club, and look, they're bearing the fruit of that now. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's identically going to happen at Everton, by the way. I'm not comparing the 2 managers, but what I'm saying is sometimes you've got to stick by a manager, like we are doing now with Lampard. He's created a unity with the fan base. That's massive. We know that. Everton fans are some of the best fans in the world. I'm not just saying that because I'm on an Everton podcast. They are. We sell out away from home every single time. Look at them at Southampton last week. Train strike absolutely filled the away end out. You know what I mean? Unbelievable support. And they're not stupid. They're not stupid. Most fans are not stupid. So, in that respect, I think most fans now bought into Lampard. Like we've said on previous podcasts, I think he carries himself well. I think he speaks well. I think he says the right things at the right time. And us as fans are on this journey now with him. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that, he will improve as a manager just as we improve as a team.
Yeah, I totally agree with all the points. Although when you say Mascot fans, some of the shouts I hear by me in the paddock, I do question every time. I've got to be honest. Some of the things people come out with are absolutely comical, and I don't even mean the 7-year-old behind me. And there's some absolute lunatics in there. But
I had a belter next to me. I'll say this one. I had a belter next to me. So when the United were constantly wasting time on those goal kicks, we all know what was going on with De Gea. And obviously it was getting absolutely mad. Some guy, I think he was behind me or whatever, was shouting at Mope, "Get in the box and close De Gea down." I was like, "Mate, you can't go in the box, mate." "Yeah, he can. He's making him go long." And I was just like, "Oh, God." All right, okay. Right.
I think the 7 p.m. kickoff on a Sunday allowed for a little bit extra drinking time, which certainly clouded some people's judgments and understanding of the game, didn't it? Because it was strange last night, some of the things that were being said. But you're right. I think the understanding is there, and that's every time I go on our show, other shows, and they're writing and they're doing things like that. I always try and get that point across that because of what we've seen so often in some of the mainstream sport media in regards to Lampard and this pressure, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at the moment. Let's get it right, because there's understanding what I can make out at the club and also within the fan base, that we understand it's going to take a bit of time. We're sick and tired of obviously going through managers, one or two every single season. It just doesn't work, and we know we've got to try and build this now and look to move forward and kick on. But it's a slow process. So we all get it, and that's the key thing to understand, and that's why it was just great to see last night that I know some people walked out when United scored that 3rd goal. It was disallowed. I thought it was quite funny, and all of a sudden, when they found out it was disallowed, everyone just come running back in again, which I thought was quite comical. I think some of them were probably halfway down Bullens Road at one point, and he legged it back into the big wooden doors. But it's just good. It's you still get that feel good factor, and it does help that the fans are on board with manager and players. We do feel that little bit more of a connection towards the players as well, which is also vitally important.
Just to add to that, Mike, as well, I think obviously in terms of play, like on the playing face of the club, in terms of the players that are registered to the club, the manager, the playing staff, even the board to an extent, in terms of a sporting club and performance in that regard. It's very much a transitional period for Everton, but also for the club as an organisation as a whole. We are literally relocating from Goodison Park to Bramley-Moore Dock, within the next year or two. So this transitional period for Everton Football Club is huge. So to have, a cohesive unit in terms of fans, players, coaching staff, is huge in terms of this move from Goodison Park to Bramley-Moore. So touch wood, going forward, this cohesive nature around the club at the moment can sustain itself ahead of some massive years for the club.
Just to add to Max,
that's a good point
as well.
I
actually think that it is really important. If you think of Everton this summer, even just look at the playing squads, they've built the base of what they can build on in the future. So you've got Onana who's young, 2 years time when they move in the prime of his career. Hopefully, Mikalenko's the same. Dwight McNeil, hopefully, Anthony Gordon, Nathan Patterson. There's a foundation of a team there that they build on, and then they have the qualities who going forwards, defensively, whatever. Even forgetting about Ben Godfrey, who's still only young 20s. You know what I mean? He's not an old player by any means. So there's a lot there for Everton, but it does go to the outside of the pitch. There's been such a restructuring of Everton's team, management, director of football was new in the summer. The medical team's been overhauled. Everything has been overhauled at Everton. So I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves when they do go on a good run, because as you said earlier, those stats aren't there. You're saying we're giving up chances and stuff like that. I think it should be a slow but steady wins the race with Everton. I think that should be the mantra for the time being, because let's be honest, we don't want to be risking Premier League football if we're going to that brand new stadium anyway. That was the big fear last season as one of them. We're meant to be paying for the stadium, we might be a championship club. I'd rather Everton was steady for 2 years, maybe pushing the top 10 and building that team. So, we go into Bramley-Moore Dock and there's a great team there of young players with 2 or 3 years of Premier League experience under the belt. That's what Everton should be doing.
Yeah, it almost feels like a little bit like early Moyes a little bit, because we took a chance on Moyes, young manager coming from Preston. And then he endeared himself to the fan base very quickly with a couple of sound bites that he put in. Frank's endeared himself to the fan base. And obviously we're building from the back, as you should do when you're doing a restructure. Make yourselves hard to beat. It was, I said to you, Mike, after the game yesterday, if that was Ten Hag's United yesterday playing Everton's team of last year under Rafa Benitez in particular before Christmas, we would have got battered yesterday. They would have walked through us. So we've certainly been a lot more solid. And like I said before, look, we still need to add goals to the team. We know that. But the good thing that I'm seeing is that with Thelwell coming in and with Frank as well, the players we've been linked with, the likes of Kudus, likes of Mudryk and players like that, players who are real, some of Europe's top talent right there. We were basically would have got Kudus over the line by all accounts if Anthony hadn't gone to United. So I'm glad that we're being linked with these sort of players now. By all accounts, yes, some of them sometimes they're gambles, but if we'd have picked up Kudus for what would reportedly been around about 12 million, that could have been a hell of a signing. So for me, the signs are good that we are being linked with those sort of talents across Europe. Now, finally, the owners stop playing football manager with our football club.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on. The links this summer, especially late on, were really positive. Like Onana came in late, James Garner came in late. Two really young players. You mentioned there Kudus, and it shows a solid structure in terms of recruitment that we are in the mix for these players, and it's a shame that Kudus especially, he was literally one step through the door, wasn't he? And it was just didn't come off. But hopefully that can be resurrected in January. Everton have given themselves a bit of room to do a bit of business then, I'm sure. But
there's strong links with Gakpo in January as well. Apparently, he'd be nice. Unbelievable. He started the season brilliant at PSV. They need the money by all accounts. They're skint. Obviously, we've got Brands in there who obviously we know very well. So he's got 10 goals, 9 assists this season already. Okay, it's not the same league, but as Max just did with his facial expression there, he would be ideal, wouldn't he, if we could get him over the line?
Yeah. I don't want to rain on the parade, but it don't give us much hope on that one.
No, I've got to agree.
Positivity, mate. Positivity.
Last I heard this morning was he was holding on for Real Madrid. So we'll see how that one plays out.
I mean, I put us above Leeds. Don't get me wrong. We're a much more attractive prospect than Leeds, but I think he's got higher ambitions, and we think he thinks a bit bigger. And that all comes from Manchester United wanting him earlier in the summer. They phoned him. There was conversations. It looked like it was happening, and they never. So I think that's in his head now. He thinks I'll stay at PSV, and someone big will come for me at some point. But I agree with what Lee is saying in that we're targeting the right type of player. You know, that early 20s that we can develop. And even if we've got to sell them, I know a lot of Everton fans, we shouldn't be selling these type of players. We should be keeping them and building them around them. But Everton are in that position where they're a developmental club for me. We take a young player, we turn them into a star. If they stay and we're successful, great. If we make 60 million on them like we did with Richarlison, great again, we carry on building. So we are, at least we're targeting the right type.
That's how you take it to the next level. That's how you take it to the next level all day, isn't it? You look at Liverpool got ridiculous sum of money for Coutinho. You know, they took a gamble on him from Inter for next to nothing. They sold him for 150 million. They signed Van Dijk and Alisson with that money. That just those two signings alone took him to a next level. Yeah, I mean, and that's how we've got to do it, whether we like it or not. Sadly, that's the only way we're going to compete with teams who are, bankrolled in some cases by countries.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been sort of banging that drum for a little while. If it means that we bring players in for decent, okay money or bargains, and then sell them for 30 or 40 million pound profit, that's what the best side do. They all do it, but when you're in the stage that we're in, we will need to do that. That's what we need to bring players in that we can sell on for a profit to be able to then bring in another two and then keep on going like that. It's what we need to do. So that's where we are. And I've been saying, if we finish, I think we're going to be sort of 12th to 14th really, and I think that would be okay. I'll be fairly satisfied if we're pushing, like you said, mid-table would be, 10th, 11th would be, I think, a real achievement for us, because we've got to understand where we are. And I think a lot of people are now, a lot of fans are coming around to the fact that we are where we are. We're back in the team, we're back in the manager, and we, these little signs, these little steps, 2 or 3 places a season is a real positive thing for us to go and do, especially after the wake-up call, hopefully, of last season, because we certainly don't want to be in around those places again, that is for sure, because my heart and my health cannot take that kind of season, I don't think, ever again. So let's
what I would say from last season, one of my big concerns at Everton was that we would get away with last season and no one would learn any lessons. So everyone, Shiri, everyone else at the club would go, we got away with that one, let's carry on, we're all right. And fortunately, it appears that everyone has had to sit down and gone, no, we can't let that happen again, let's do things properly. And I honestly would think that Everton is going as it should at Everton at the minute. The structure's there, the manager's sensible. That's another thing I do actually like about Lampard. He's not over ambitious. He's not going, come on, we're going to go push for top 8, whatever, Europa League, Conference League. He knows where Everton are. He knows what the issues are that need to be fixed. He knows that some of these players need to be developed. I mean, we all rave about Onana. Still 22, is he? Or younger, needs development.
21.
These are players that are gonna. It takes time. You can't have Everton at once. We're not signing world beaters. Cody and Tarkowski have been brilliant for Everton, but we weren't fighting off major competition for either of them players, were we? We had to beat West Ham for Onana, but no one was rushing out to sign Dwight McNeil or Neil Maupay. It's where we are. Let's be calm about it and hope the structure that they've put in place now works.
Yeah. Sadly, Sean, we live in a world of instant gratification these days. Exactly. So we need to try and steer away from that and just understand this is a marathon, not a sprint.
They were, and I mean the next test comes obviously on Saturday against a Spurs side, obviously in the Champions League. Richarlison now at Spurs, currently sitting third as well, so they started the season pretty well. And we're going to discuss that in the final part of the show. Welcome back to the final part of this week's Unholy Trinity podcast, and it's Spurs. Spurs up next, heading to the London Stadium. I still say they make the best pies. Every season I say this, best away pie. But what I will say is the pies outside Goodison at the moment are absolutely spectacular. It's a homemade pies. We were in the fan zone. I had a nice little gammon leek and cheese last night. I'm working my way down the menu. I've had a few so far this season. So that's been a real addition. I've got to be honest. But the
have you got shares in them, Mike? Have you got shares in them? Have you?
Listen, I'm open to any investment opportunities, and I think they're going to go places. But it's lovely pie. Give it a try. It's definitely worth it. I think
it sounds very Henry VIII, that pie, gammon, leek and cheese.
Well, it was called. I think it was called.
Very gout. Very gout.
Yeah. I think it was called the Holy Trinity, so it was very fitting actually that I actually bought that pie. But it was lovely.
I haven't bought anything from any of the kiosks for a number of years now. Do they still do the Scouse pie?
They've got a Scouse pie on actually. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's not like the one you used to get in the ground. Remember the big massive Scouse pies you used to get in the grounds? Not like them. They were foul. These ones are nice, but a bit of HP. Give you a bit of brown sauce as well. Lee got a bit of. I've got to tell this story, by the way. I was laughing my head off at this. I couldn't believe, right? We rocked up to the fan zone and he whips out, what was it, a mint tea bag? He said, a mint tea bag. He said, you think if I asked one of the kiosks inside the ground for some hot water, that they'd give it to me for my mint tea bag? Because I don't have caffeine after. He's like bloody Gizmo from the Gremlins. Don't have caffeine after a certain time of night or something. And I said, listen, the best chance you've got is go to the homemade pies and see if they give you some hot water. And there he was in the fan zone with his little mint tea. So there's your modern match going fan for you.
I can't believe you rinsed me on that. It was. We were having a good pie chat then, and you've just thrown that in there, haven't you?
It just came into me. I had to share it with everybody because that's an absolute.
Speaking of pies, though, and one thing I really miss, I don't know whether you boys have ever been, but Pie. There used to be a place called Pie on Rose Lane in Liverpool, PI, and they did the best pies in the city. So you'd basically go there, you'd have this pie. And they were all freshly made, steak and ale, all of them, chicken, probably that gammon one you mentioned. You'd have a load of mash, mushy peas and gravy all over it. And then you'd have like a pint and they do all different types of ales in there as well. So bring back Pie on Rose Lane. They closed down, sadly.
I'd have been really annoyed by that name. That's
PI, I know, it's a terrible pun. It's a terrible
just stick
pun.
An eye on it.
But,
just stick an E, sorry, an E on it.
Sean, the produce was amazing. And the only reason they closed down, sadly, is because they had their rent doubled up, sadly, and then they had to leave. But it was an institution in South Liverpool, that place.
I thought we were discussing Spurs, right? We spend more
Great
time
pie chat.
About different pies than we have about us playing Spurs.
Great pie chat. This should be a segment every week, pie.
PI.
Pie of the week. We do a pie of the week. Anyone wants to send us any pies, by the way, to try on the show? We're definitely open for that kind of deal as well. But back to Spurs. Obviously, very, very difficult away trip, of course, at R5 Saturday. Max, it's tricky, really, isn't it? Because like Sean said earlier on, this was the side that we were competing with. Spurs only 5-6 years ago that we were fighting for similar positions in the table, really, and we've sort of gone one way, stagnated and gone backwards, and they've gradually they obviously moved into a fantastic new stadium. There's been investments in the squad. You're obviously back in the Champions League this season as well, and it's quite you look at them and you're quite envious, aren't you, really, of where they've gone and the elevation that they've gone on over the last few years. And you look at the squad they've got now, including obviously the Richarlison who'll be signed in the summer, and they're a very, very strong side, aren't they?
Yeah, most definitely. I am one that bangs that drum probably more than most, in that the likes of, I think, but particularly when I was in high school in particular, so like the 2010s, the likes of your Tottenhams, your Chelseas, your Arsenals, and Liverpool to an extent, because I remember finishing above Liverpool a good few times under David Moyes. Going forward, I always saw them as Everton's main competitors and rivals for places. As you've alluded to there, they've all gone one way and Everton have gone the other. But I think following on from that narrow defeat against United, I think Tottenham are a great opposition. I think it gives Lampard and that group of players the opportunity to show what they're made of. Like Sean said, the varying degrees of criticism online following that defeat to Manchester United was pretty wild. I did see, I sort of limited my amount of screen time following that game, because I knew there'd be people that took the loss way out of proportion. So I think this is a great opportunity for the group of players to answer critics. And it's a big challenge against a Spurs side that has started the season really strongly. And I'm not expecting Everton to run away with it at all. But it would be great to see Everton be competitive in this game and hopefully learn from their mistakes against Manchester United.
If we rewind back a few months ago, we went to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and got
battered.
5-0. Frank Lampard was in charge, wasn't he? We were very open. We were quite naive in thinking in terms of our approach. So Sean, again, back to the manager here. We're talking about learning on the job. That's a good measuring stick for him, really, isn't it? In terms of what has he learned from that game a few months ago in terms of being, so open and expansive against a very good side. Do we expect and we hope that we are going to see a different kind of setup when we go there on Saturday night?
To be honest, I would not be surprised if Everton sat back and let Tottenham come on them, because Tottenham are not a good attacking team when they're given the ball and attacking you. They want to counter attack at Antonio Conte's way. They want to sit back, let you come on and counter attack with Dips, Son, Kane, Kulusevski, Richarlison, whoever it may be. Their central midfield is a defensive central midfield. Bentancur's got forward and got a couple of goals, this season, and Højbjerg's done the same. But there's no creativity in there. And you watched their game yesterday or the day before against Brighton. It was a 1-0 Kane's header, and Brighton didn't let them do what they wanted to do. So I do hope that Lampard has learned. We go gung-ho, we're going to get caught out, but there's an opportunity there definitely. But it's Lampard up against an elite level manager again, but we're up against a team that's spent 60 million on Richarlison and has got probably one of the best 3 forwards in world football in Harry Kane. Son's another one. Kulusevski's great. 3 great defenders in there as well. So it's one of them where if Everton don't win, I'm not upset. I'm not overly upset about it because I don't measure us against the likes of Tottenham and those people. We're not at that level. We're not competing at that end of the table. But as Max was saying, I think it's if Everton go and put a performance in, that's more important. We can be better on the ball. We can be better defensively. We can deal with them. If we lose 1-0, Harry Kane scores a screamer or taps it in somewhere, whatever. That's not upsetting. It's the performance that matters, not really the result for me.
Yeah, what you alluded to. Sorry, Lee. Just to add to that, right? What you alluded to earlier, I think, Sean, what you were upset about in terms of the United game, it being Lampard's tactical mismanagement, it would be a great measuring stick for Lampard to go into this game with a measured approach to understand. If you play a high line against this Spurs side, you are going to get absolutely obliterated like we did last season. So ultimately, if we do play a low block, soak in the pressure, and hopefully look to hit them on the counter attack with your Damari Grays, with your Anthony Gordons, maybe we can get a result that way. So I think for not just the players but Lampard as well, to show that he'd learned from that loss against United and Tottenham last season, this game is not a massive game, but it'd be important in that regard.
I would put my mortgage on it right now that he will not play a high line against that team because he made the mistake. He made the mistake.
You would have said that last season, wouldn't you? I think anyone with
I know,
pair
but
of
I
eyes
think
would
that
have said
it was one of his first few games at the club, and I think he was trying to impress his style of football or the way he sees football onto our team, and then he realised quite quickly, these kids aren't up to it, so he had to change his style quite quickly. I think he learned from that, and he made us very much a pragmatic side after that. I think the Spurs game was a massive awakening for him in terms of the level where we were as a club, really, as a bunch of players. Mm-hmm. We clearly see the style he wants us to play. He wants us to dominate the ball and dominate teams. But like Sean just alluded to, we're nowhere near the Spurs team. And Spurs have obviously, their front four would walk into our team. You know what I mean? Right now. I mean, they've all got a mixture of styles. Thankfully, Kulusevski is injured. I think he's done his hamstring. So that's a big plus for us because he's a very clever player, lovely footballer, great balance. He offers something different to that team. We've got to hope Richarlison stays quiet. Obviously, he'll probably want to score against us, being our old club. I expect if he does, hopefully he doesn't, he won't celebrate because obviously his love for the club. But fingers crossed that we go into it and we are hard to beat. We do sit off and we do deny them space because they have, like Sean was saying there, they have struggled against teams that have played a low block against them and said, go on then, break us down. You know what I mean? Harry Kane wants to spin on the half turn and flip it over the top to Son. That's the way they want to score goals. If you deny them space and then have a bit of quality on the counter attack, I think we could cause them problems. But as we know, they will be big favourites going into the game. They're third in the league. They've had a reasonable start to the season. They've had a few blips here and there in terms of potentially not being as free scoring as they probably want to be. But we could get something. But I do genuinely think he will play that style of football, concede possession of the ball, sit off, and then hopefully have a little bit of quality going forward. What I will be interested to see what he does do. Gordon suspended for the game, 5 yellow cards, by the way, in 9 games, which is crazy. He lost his head a little bit yesterday. But I'll be very interested to see what he does down that right side. I don't know what you think. I mean, I don't know enough about James Garner, but he showed a little bit enough in me when he came on that he's got something about him. Could he possibly play on the right-hand side? A few of my mates are United fans and said he's got a hell of a cross on him, almost Beckham-esque in the way he whips it. I don't know. I know he's a central midfielder. We've bought him as a central midfielder. But it'll be interesting to see what he does. He may play McNeil because he knows McNeil is pretty diligent defensively. I suspect he will go with that route. But I don't know. I don't know whether you guys know enough more about James Garner than me. Maybe he will possibly try and put him out to the right-hand side.
Irrespective of that, I don't know if that's the correct tactical decision with the likes of Dyer and Romero. I'm not so much Davies, but Dyer and Romero in particular, who are renowned for getting their head to things. And if you think Calvert-Lewin won't be fit enough to start, it'll be Mopé in the middle, probably prompts the same issues that Everton had against Manchester United. But who knows? That's the beauty of the game, isn't it? Who knows what's going to happen? It'd be nice
come down to a set piece. Make him down to set piece. And by all accounts, this boy has got a hell of a delivery on him in terms of set pieces as well. And look, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know enough about him. We don't know enough about him unless you're a Forest fan and you've watched all the games that he played for them last season. By all accounts, he had a very good season. He was obviously in the team of the year at the championship level. So let's see. Look, at the end of the day, at least he's got options now. I mean, we didn't have a lot of options before. He turned around at some point and he's got 5 teenagers sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? So at least he's got more options to choose from.
Yeah, I'd be sorry, Max. I'd be very surprised if Sean, if James Garner comes in. I think we are going to see more and more of him. I think we'll see more and more of him and getting longer periods of time off the bench for Idrissa Gana Gueye, Amadou Onana. Alex Iwobi, we saw him drop back into right back yesterday when we made our changes. So I think we'll see more of him off the bench. But I do think there will come a time, this season, maybe earlier than we think, that he will start to get some game time off the bench. I think we'll probably see him start that Bournemouth game in the cup, assuming that he's fit, and give him a go from there. I just can't see him playing wide, because there's a lot of this defensive responsibility, especially in that kind of game. So I think the Dwight McNeil coming in in a straight swap for Anthony Gordon makes perfect sense, because obviously he will track back. I think he's not bad defensively, better than Anthony Gordon, I would say, and I think he's not a bad person to have. And then if it comes down to a set piece, I think we're seeing him now. I thought his corners late on yesterday were very, very good. Jordan Pickford was a whisker away with one of them. He was very, very close. Threw himself like bloody Superman at one point to try and get to the ball. We probably should have scored off another one. So you've got the danger of him on the right-hand side with his left foot. Damari Gray, we know at times he puts a wicked ball across the face of the 6-yard box. You've seen it time and again this season. We just need a little bit more guile up there and a little bit more from our centre forward, really. But will Dom get half an hour? Will he get 20 minutes? Will we need them? I think we will see him again. But hopefully, we can stick in the game really for a long period and make sure that like United we weren't great first half, more so than second half. But in the 90th minute, we're pushing for an equaliser and could have really grabbed the points on another day. That's a funny thing. As much as we were nowhere near being the better side, we stuck in the game. And that's the difference, really, isn't it? The fact that in years gone by, you would have folded. We didn't fold. We kept going. We weren't great, but we kept plugging away. Made the changes, looked a bit more dangerous, and could have got a point. So it's going to be a really tough game, isn't it? They're a good side. They've got quality throughout. Good players coming off the bench. A fantastic manager in Conte. So it's difficult to predict, really, isn't it? But like you said before, Sean, it's about the performance, isn't it? Not so much about, do we lose the game 1-0, 2-0? If Everton put in a decent performance, and you can see that we've learned lessons from last season and learned lessons from Manchester United as well, I might add, then you can come away satisfied that we are going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that Everton don't give away an early goal. Don't give away something cheap. Don't give away, don't give them that chance, because that forces us out then to not play the tactics that I suspect Lampard will want to go with. He'll want to sit deep, hope to hit them on the counter, frustrate them, basically, because I don't think these are a very good team when it comes to creating. They've got players who can create, but not on the front foot. They want to do that counter-attack and, wing backs, get Kane on the turn, as Lee said, that sort of thing. And if we can stop that happening, that frustrates them then, especially at home, because they've got to be like that at home. And I think you've seen that in the Europa League. Like, they got beat by Sporting 2-0 away from home. Did you get Eintracht Frankfurt at home? West Ham got a point against them as well. If you can frustrate them, they haven't got a creative midfield. They haven't got an Eriksen like Man United had last night, who will pick that pass, who will open those sort of things up. So yeah, it is about that performance, and not being naive would be the word for me. Don't give them what they want. Frustrate them, annoy them. Be that team. I loved Everton under David Moyes when we would play that way. We were smart about it. If we didn't think we could out football them, we would out compete them. So let's see them compete. On that James Garner point, I've just looked up his stats. He's played one game in his entire career at left midfield, and that's it. So it would be
right midfield, right mid.
None at all. No.
Well, that's an absolute awful shout from me then.
So it would be a miracle if he comes in there and and does a job. To be fair, that could be one.
Don't get Lee and Frank Lampard here this week, for God's sake. Don't put that idea in.
If I was a coach, mate, I'd have about 10 number 10s on the pitch. Just clue, mate. No clue.
But, having said that, he is a defensive midfielder. So if you're going to go with that defensive approach, maybe he does come in alongside Garner, and you have the two sitting midfielders and Iwobi in front of them, maybe instead of Onana. I like Onana for his height and his competitive, but the option's there to do something different and not just be, stick five at the back, because I don't think that works. I think the most important thing is that if you're going to start Coleman, he's got to be protected, because we saw last night he was getting run ragged. That Ronaldo goal, he was about 30 yards behind the play. He's out of position. He's struggling. And we haven't got someone else who'll come in there. I think that's the big loss with Mason Holgate and Ben Godfrey. They've got the pace and the athleticism that could have come in there and done a job for us. Coleman's really struggling. So I think that is the weak area that we do need. And that will probably see McNeil come in, because he spent his whole career going backwards at Burnley, hasn't he? So should be used to it by now.
I mean, the other option as well that you've got is you could always, if you're going to throw James Garner into the middle, you could always say to Alex Iwobi, go and play on the right wing or the left wing. And I know obviously not ideal. I say we saw him play at right back for a time last night, and it does take away from his game, but he will do his job. In terms of defensively and recovery and things like that, he can do that job. So the man just got options there is the key thing, really. But likely you would see, for me, Dwight McNeil come in for Anthony Gordon in a straight swap. But all that's left to do is get our predictions for the game. Max, what do you think?
It's a shame you've come to me first, because I'm not the most optimistic. It's not going to be a case of damage limitation. I think Everton will have learned from their mistakes to an extent against Manchester United, but I think it's going to be 2-0 to Tottenham. I think they're going to have too much for Everton going forward. Harry Kane will probably get his annual goal against Everton, and it would not surprise me to see Richarlison get on the score sheet either.
Sean?
Yeah, I think I'm the least optimistic as well. I actually think it'll be a 1-0. I think it'll be Kane. Kane will get a goal. if it was to be 2-0, I think it would do that Everton route of they score, we put loads of pressure on, have loads of great chances, don't score them, Harry Kane gets the second goal and it's over. I think so. 1 or 2-0 for me as well to Tottenham, but I'm here to be surprised.
Lee?
Yeah, it's hard to be optimistic in it. Tottenham are a good side. I think they will push the top 4 this season. I'm hoping there's really, obviously Kane took a bit of a knock at the end of the game on his ankle there, so I'm just praying that that he is out for the game. We know how bad he is with ankle injuries, so there's an outside chance he could be missing. Let's hopefully that is the case. But I'm going to say 1-1. I think we're a lot more solid this year, and even going into the Southampton away game. Okay, Southampton are nowhere near Spurs level, but I feel now, because we just seem a lot more solid, particularly through the middle of the spine of the team. I just feel we have more of a chance in these types of games now in terms of being hard to beat. So I'm going to go a more optimistic 1-1.
I was going to say the same, but I am being optimistic. I think if we nick a point, I think it's a fantastic result. I really do, against a really, really strong side. I think my head probably says we're going to lose the game, but my heart's saying 1-1. And I think we've got to get in Richarlison's head. I don't care what everyone's feelings are towards Richarlison, by the way. Doesn't play for us. We'll go and wind them up because we know we can react. So and no one knows more than the players who are going to be starting the game, the majority of them. So get into his head. If he starts, then wind them up. Dead easy. As much as we all loved him, once a player goes, for me, listen, that's the end of the story. So we know what we need to do there, but hopefully we can get something from the game. That's for sure. Because obviously it doesn't get much easier because we'll be travelling to St James's Park a few days later at a resurgent Newcastle United. So we've got to make sure we keep the points ticking over if we can. But again, like Sean said, improved performances is what we need to look at. Are we learning our lessons, and are we looking to kick on in that respect? Well, that's us for this week. Really enjoyable show. All I have to say is thanks to Sean and Max for both taking the time on a Monday evening to speak to me and Lee.
Pleasure to speak to you, gents.
And we'll be back next week, looking back on that Spurs game on the Saturday night and looking ahead, like I said, to one of my least favourite teams, Newcastle United, and even more so nowadays. So that'll be an interesting show. So we will catch you then.
The Unholy Trinity Podcast. 3 Blues, 3 opinions, 1 Everton podcast.